The U.S. median home price is on the decline, and we could be in the beginning stages of a major market downturn. But there is another housing crisis that has been developing over the years that is the real threat to the housing market in the years to come. We're going to talk about it in today's video. Let's get into it. In my last video on the U.S. housing market, I covered the latest data and pointed out how what happens with the supply side of the market is key to determining if the current downtrend in the U.S. median home price we've seen over the last few months continues or takes a pause. According to the latest data from Redfin, a national real estate brokerage, the U.S. median home price in May was $431,000 on a seasonally adjusted basis, which was down 1.1% from the peak back in December. The reason for the decline? Weak demand and rising supply. On the demand side, affordability is at one of the worst points in recent history. The average housing payment as a percent of household income was 38.9% in May, still above where it was in the last housing crisis. Yet despite the record level of unaffordability, prices have been rising for much of the last few years. Why has it changed now? Rising supply. The month supply of homes over the last few months surpassed where it was before the pandemic, and this has finally given way to the recent price declines. If supply keeps rising, prices will keep falling, and there's definitely pent-up supply out there that can come online in the months ahead. Home sales have been at historic lows the last few years, and a lot of sales that ordinarily would have happened didn't. A lot of this can be attributed to what has been called the lock-in effect. A lot of homeowners locked in record low mortgage rates before the Fed began raising interest rates, and faced with the prospect of staying in their current home or getting a new home with a 7% mortgage, it was an easy choice. So there are a lot of homeowners that may have sold their home over the last few years but didn't because of this lock-in effect. This is where increased supply could come from to drive prices lower. But what happens when this pent-up supply runs out? That is when the other housing crisis kicks in, the housing shortage. A 2024 research report by Zillow found that in 2022, there was a shortage of 4.5 million homes in the U.S. The problem is that our population is growing faster than we are building new homes, and it's getting worse each year. A separate report by the Brookings Institute found that in 2023, there was an estimated shortage of 4.9 million homes. This housing shortage has gotten a lot worse over the last decade. In the run-up to the last housing crisis, there was a surge in construction activity, but then it cratered to the lowest level since the Census Bureau began collecting data on housing completions in 1968. Construction activity has been trending higher since then, but we are still digging our way out of that hole. A report in March by Realtor.com claimed that it is going to take 7 years to fix this housing shortage at the current pace of construction. They found that in 2024 there was still a shortage of 3.8 million housing units, even though construction has picked up over the years. As I've said before, what happens on the supply side of the market is key to determining what happens to prices in the months ahead. Demand remains weak because homes are so unaffordable for the average buyer, so supply is the deciding factor in the market. The current pent-up supply I mentioned before will run out, and if we aren't building enough homes to increase overall supply, we're going to be right back where we started with tight supply and prices that either trend sideways or head higher again in the years to come. The policy reasons and market dynamics across regions for why we have this shortage are beyond the scope of today's video, and it's hard to predict what policymakers in each state are going to do to help the situation. But what we can do is monitor the current pace of construction to gauge whether we are closing this gap or if the housing shortage will persist in the years to come and put upward pressure on prices. But what do you think? Construction has been trending higher the last few years. Will it continue and alleviate this situation, or is it just going to get worse and home ownership will stay out of reach for the average American? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you want to stay up to date on the latest developments in the housing market and what current trends mean for prices in the future, make sure you are subscribed to this channel and hit that notification bell down below so you won't miss my next video when it comes out. And if you found this video useful or at least mildly entertaining, go ahead and hit that like button down below to support the channel and help it grow. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.